The American Trap. My Battle to Expose. America's Secret Economic War Against the Rest of the World, by Frédéric Pierucci. Forward. This book tells the story of what I discovered, through bitter experience, about how the United States of America, in the guise of the global fight against corruption and terrorism, conducts its underground economic warfare. Over a period engulfing more than 10 years, the United States has succeeded in destabilizing the largest European multinationals. The American Department of Justice, DOJ, targets their senior managers, incarcerates them if necessary, and nets billions of dollars in fines by coercing those companies to plead guilty. Since 2008, 30 corporations have each paid out fines above $100 million to the American Treasury. 16 of them are European, 5 are French, 3 are German, 2 are British, and just 7 are American. European corporations will have shelled out a total of more than $6 billion, with American corporations paying 3 times less. French corporations alone have already paid a total of nearly $2 billion, and 6 of their executives have been indicted by the American judiciary. I am one of them. I refuse to remain silent any longer. This is my story, from my perspective, as I lived and experienced it. Chapter 1. Shock and disbelief. I have become an animal, draped in an orange jumpsuit, chains are wrapped around my chest, handcuffs lock my feet and hands. I can hardly walk or breathe. I am a tied-down brute, a creature snared in a trap. Last night, they threw me into a cell where the stench is so strong, I feel giddy. No windows, just a tiny slit beyond which I guess is a courtyard. Then there is the noise, the quarreling, the fights, the screams, the incessant screams. It's a nightmare. I'm hungry and thirsty. Very thirsty. Water hasn't touched my lips for 8 hours since the announcement came, turning my life upside down. A seemingly insignificant polite message by a Cathay Pacific flight attendant with a perfect English accent. Her dulcet tones forebode disaster. Mr. Pierucci is kindly requested to present himself to the cabin crew upon landing. The Boeing 777. I had just touched down at New York's JFK Airport. I had left Singapore at dawn. After a stopover in Hong Kong on a journey of more than 24 hours, I was dead beat. It was 14th April 2013 and 8 p.m. The pilot had completed his flight plan to perfection. The aircraft was just arriving home when the voice resounded out. Should I have been suspicious? Right now, I'm knocked out by jet lag, even though I'm used to long-haul flights. At 45 years old, after having been based in Algiers, Manchester, Hong Kong, Beijing, Windsor, Connecticut, Paris, and Zurich, I currently live in Singapore. During my 2 decades of globetrotting for Alstom, I am used to receiving this type of message, whether it is to report a rescheduled meeting or a mobile phone forgotten during a stopover. So, without any particular misgivings, I presented myself to the chief flight attendant. The young woman looked a bit embarrassed. The aircraft door opened and, with a shy and fleeting gesture, she points out a group of people who are waiting for me when I get off the plane. A woman, 2 or 3 men in uniform and 2 in plain clothes. The woman politely asks me to confirm my identity, then orders me to get off the plane. I barely have time to utter my name before one of the uniformed men grabs my arm, wrenches it behind my lower back, then takes my other arm and pushes it up onto my back, handcuffing me. Frédéric Pierucci, you're under arrest. Totally dazed. I don't react. I simply do not resist. Later on, I often wondered what would have happened if I hadn't left the plane, if I had refused to disembark. Would they have been able to arrest me so easily if I had not yet set foot on American soil? I complied without flinching. Unwittingly, I made it easier for them, as we were still in theory in the international zone, even on the walkway after leaving the aircraft. Right now, I'm standing here in handcuffs. Shocked and astonished, I demand an explanation. The two plainclothes agents tell me they're FBI detectives. We've only had one instruction to arrest you as you leave the aircraft and escort you to FBI headquarters in Manhattan. When you arrive, a district attorney will brief you. I have no choice but to settle for these meager words and follow them through the airport, my hand shackled behind my back, like a gangster, with the two marshals in uniform watching over me like hawks. I am conscious of the heavy gaze of the other passengers on me. After a few yards, I realize that, to keep my balance, I can only take tiny steps forward, which is no mean feat for someone of 6'1" weighing 200 pounds. I feel and look like a freak. It could be a movie scene in which I'm playing the role of DSK, who only 2 years earlier was just like me on the streets of New York, handcuffed and escorted by the FBI. Right now, though, I'm more astonished by what is happening to me than concerned. It is obviously a mistake or a misunderstanding. The FBI has mistaken me for someone else, and after a few checks, my name will be cleared and life will be back to normal. There has been an increase in these types of incidents at New York JFK in recent years. My guards lead me directly into a small room. I know this place by heart. It is where the American authorities conduct their meticulous inspection of passports of aliens potentially posing a risk. During the Second Iraq War in 2003, due to France's refusal to fight alongside the US forces, French businessmen have been held in this airport annex for hours, waiting for US officials to finally agree to let them enter US territory. Today, everything proceeds with the speed of light. After checking my papers, the two inspectors whisk me out of the airport and into an unmarked car. I then realize that I am indeed the person they were waiting for. This is not one of those absurd stories where a member of the public is mistaken for a potential terrorist or a hitman. But why me? What do they want from me? And what have I done? I don't need to spend long sifting through my life. I have nothing to reproach myself for in my personal affairs. That leaves my job at Alstom. But the idea that this brutal arrest could be related to my professional activities seems equally improbable to me. At full speed, I perform a quick checklist of current files in my head. None of the recent projects I have dealt with since being in Singapore, where I took up my duties 10 months earlier as global president of the boiler division, seem to me to be tainted by the slightest suspicion. However, I do know that Alstom is regularly under investigation for corruption and that an investigation was opened by the American Department of Justice several years ago. The group of Alstom companies was accused of allegedly having paid bribes to secure numerous contracts, including one for a power plant in Indonesia. At the time, I had been working on this project, and Alstom had indeed used external consultants to secure the contract. But these facts date back to 2003 and 2004, and the Indonesian contract was signed in 2005. The negotiations took place almost 10 years ago. In other words, old news. And to top it all, I was cleared by an internal audit, the type they conduct in similar cases. It was early 2010 or 2011, I don't remember the exact date, but what I am sure of, as the car races towards Manhattan and I become more and more nervous, is that two lawyers hired by Alstom interrogated me for about an hour. And to my knowledge, they were satisfied that I had complied with all the group's procedures. Then, in 2012, I obtained a big promotion, giving me the position I currently hold as head of the boiler division, in charge of 4,000 people worldwide for a turnover of $1.6 billion. In addition, Patrick Crone, CEO of Alstom, who since 2011 had sought to create a joint venture with the Chinese Shanghai Electric Company, by merging the boiler activities of both groups, chose me to lead this future partnership at global level, based in Singapore. Global President. Look at me now, locked in an FBI car with sore, aching arms. The metal of the handcuffs is cutting into my wrists. How can it be possible that the Indonesian case of 2003 to 2005, in which I only played a secondary role, is the reason for such brutal treatment? I am not Al Capone or even a small-time gangster. While I go over in my mind all the possible scenarios that could have led to my arrest, the investigators stop the car on the side of the road. Ron and Ross, the FBI officers whose names I later learn, think I am nice, a stroke of luck. Mr. Pierucci, you're quiet, you're not yelling, you're not struggling. Besides, you're polite. It's pretty rare that we land on someone like you. We're going to give you a break. They take off my handcuffs, bring my arms, which had long since seized up, back onto my lap and handcuff my hands in front of me. The relief was immense. Tonight, the traffic is flowing smoothly, and we arrive in Manhattan in less than 40 minutes, right in front of the FBI headquarters, where the car plunges into the basement. We approach an elevator. The police officers prompt me to enter it. Backwards. I look at them in amazement. I worked in the United States for 7 years, from 1999 to 2006, and consider my English to be perfect. But right now, I'm in doubt. Do I really have to get in that elevator backwards? It's for security reasons, Mr. Pierucci, Ron explains to me. You have no right to see which button we press. At FBI headquarters, you will not know which floor we're taking you to or in which office you're going to be questioned. So, I am being led to a mystery floor. After passing through several armored doors, we end up in a modest-looking office. A room containing no furniture, save a table and 3 chairs in the middle, and embedded in the wall, a long iron bar to which my guards handcuff me. They leave me alone for a few moments. Suddenly the door opens and a new investigator appears. Hello, Mr. Pierucci. My name is Seth Blum. I'm investigating corruption cases within the FBI, targeting Alstom, notably the Tarahan case in Indonesia. I cannot tell you anything more because, in a few minutes, the prosecuting attorney in charge of the investigations will be coming to question you himself. Without further ado, Seth Blum quietly and politely leaves the room.